Getting started with the Mako Mini Distortion, we're going to set up a clean amplifier. The first thing we want to do is open up the amplifier section. You can click on that, left click, get into the amplifier section of the VST. Select an amplifier. We're going to select Tweedle. And right now, the amplifier is not actually in use, so we need to turn it on. You can also right click up here on the screen, or you can toggle this switch here. We do not have a speaker IR set up yet, so we want to hit load speaker. And now it will grab the default IR for this amplifier. And we want to right click the speaker up here to turn that on. Okay, now we have an amplifier ready to go. The next step would be to go to the boom and crisps. Set these probably full on. The cleaner the amplifier is, you want these probably full on. The more distortion you have, you're going to want to start backing both of these off. Defaults are around 0.5 and 0.2. The next step would be to add some power amp distortion. This is a clean amplifier, so there's basically an EQ and then a gain stage and then a power amp. So we don't want a whole lot of distortion before the EQ on a clean amp, but we do want some fatness added by the power stage. So we're going to crank up the power. And when you do this, the volume will increase, so we want to back this off a little. Okay, the next step would be you could add some fullness to the bottom end, kind of give it that what I call the thump of a speaker cabinet. And this is basically adding some more low frequency distortion, bringing it up front. We can do the same with the highs. We can add a little more highs. All we want to do now is maybe add a little bit of EQ. We need to select an EQ style that we want to use. Keep things simple. We're going with like a Fender-y style, so we can add a little bass. And we can cut the middle. And then add some highs. Okay, next we're going to set up a mid-gain amplifier. Once again, we need to select an amplifier. Let's go with the Brit J45. And we need to do all the things we did before. We need to load a speaker. Need to turn on the amplifier, turn on the speaker. And now we can play with the gain a little bit. We did not do this on the clean amp. We kind of set it at 0.5, but there you go. That's your gain, your drive. And once again, the next step then is to start playing with the boom and the crisp. You can hear that we're at a mid gain. So not having a whole lot of bass into it gives it a cleaner sound. You can add a little more. And as you add more gain, you're going to want less of the low frequencies entering. So let's do an example of that. Let's go full gain and full boom. This should be kind of like muffly. The low frequencies are just completely overpowering any high frequencies. So for distortion, it's usually better to have a little bit less bass going into the distortion section and then add the bass in after the distortion section. So with a mid-gain amplifier, you might want a little bit of power amp distortion. Again, you have to move this to taste. Basically, the higher the gain, probably the less power you want. And of course, our next steps would be to add some thump. This is already a pretty bassy sound. So we probably don't need to add too much. You could add a little air if you want. At mid gain, we probably don't need to play with the slope at all. Basically, this is going to give you a softer slope here and a harder slope here. So as the distortion goes up, you might want to start rotating this over to this other slope style. Let's move on to a higher gain amplifier sound. We're going to go with the number 17, the Crank It. I'm going to pick the default speaker for it. And we're going to turn on the amplifier, turn on the speaker. Now, as the gain goes up, we're going to need some form of noise reduction. We're going to want to turn this on. Depending on your system and your guitar shielding and whether or not your computer's feeding noise into it, you'll have to play with these numbers to get the thing that you want, the noise gate that you want. But so we're pretty good there. Once again, the gain's just at 0.5. We can rotate this around, get however much gain we want. Let's start here for now. And of course, the next step then is to add some power if you want. Add some thump if we would like. Little air, get ridiculous. Okay, at this point, we have enough gain that we might want to start thinking about different slope values. We can sometimes go around 0.7 is not too bad. You can go all the way around to completely hard clipping. And at this point, we're not adding any tube thinning. And what this does is it kind of just compresses the guitar sound as you start blowing past clipping. So the harder you're clipping, this will start lowering your volume. And this works real good for when you're trying to do some soloing and you're getting weird aliasing notes and ghost notes. So for just rhythm, you could probably leave it here. You could always go all the way on.